Pokemon. No, that's not the right tone. Take that one more time. Pokemon. I'm sick of the bullshit. I'm sick of the slander. I've had it up to here with all of the nonsense. This'll dude. He's sick of it. I'm sick of it. We're sick of it. Game Freak, Pokemon community at large. Today, I come to the defense of ice types. I've been waving this silly little guy around for near enough 8 months now. I gotta come to bat for him. And I'm sick and tired of people saying that ice type is garbage and that they're not worth having. Because they were. They used to be. And then Game Freak took it away from them. And I'm pissed about it. I've got my lobster here still. I've got my lobster shorts on again. Editor, make me a lobster again, because it's time for me to fucking snap. Ice types have existed since the very first Pokemon game. Unlike something that we'll get into later. And they used to be rad as hell. Most of them, anyway. Back in the days of Generation 1, ice types had one express purpose. Dragon Slayer. And I don't want to hear a goddamn word out of you unless you're going to be supportive and agree with me. Otherwise, you can shut the fuck up. I'm not looking for critique on this one. Ice types used to be the Dragon Slayer. That was their whole point. Let's take a little look-see at the Gen 1 type chart for dragons. Here we have the Dragon type. You know what's super effective on dragons? Ice type. You know what else is super effective on dragons? Absolutely fuck all! Not a single thing is good against dragons. Not a one. The exception being other dragons, of which there is exactly one, and it's notoriously hard to get. The answer to dragons is ice type. This is all but objective fact. And in the past, dragon types used to be a problem. Let's see what flying type Elite Four member Drake? Drake's his name, right? No, it's Lance. Drake is a different game. Let's check in and see what flying type Elite Four member Lance has to say about them. That you can call me Lance, the flying trainer. You know that dragons are mythical Pokemon. They're hard to catch and raise, but their powers are superior. They're virtually indestructible. And that continues to be sorta true. Let's take a look at the stats. Flashing by on screen are the average stat total by type distributions for every type. You'll notice a couple of things. Firstly, Dragon is in the top 3 of all of them. Secondly, Dragon takes first place in 2 out of 3 of them. If you pick a random stat from any of the 6, you have a 1 in 3 chance that a Dragon is on average best at it. This is the average stats in total. The other thing you might notice is that Dragon and Steel are first and second, and the gap between first and second is roughly equivalent between the gap of second and 13th. Dragons are far and away the strongest type by stats, which makes sense when you look at the type chart. Good old Gen 1 when everything was nice and clean. Dragon, super effective against nothing except itself. Resisted by nothing, and obviously no affected by nothing. Because why would you make dragons not able to affect anything? That'd be stupid. And as for resistances, you've got all 4 of your starter types, even though I still think that counting Pikachu as a starter is stupid, but whatever. A very clear goal is painted here. A very clear Ludo narrative. The game knows that your strongest Pokemon is going to be whatever you started with. You kept it this long, it's going to be the highest level. So it's an obvious roadblock for that. The other thing to fix this is Dragon. There's only one of them. They're stupid hard to get, unless you're doing a completionist run, which granted it is Pokemon, so there's plenty of those. But unless you're doing a catch-em-all run before you're done with stuff, you're probably not going to have a Dragon type. There is one glaring exception here. Ice type. It's specifically there to be the dragon killer. This paints a very clear picture for me. Dragon is not meant to be an oppressively powerful type. It's meant to be almost a type well, where very little affects it, other than the thing that the game designers know is gonna be your strongest thing. Where Dragon does shine is in its overwhelming stat totals on their own, as previously discussed. So, when you've got something that's just overwhelmingly powerful but not particularly engaging, what better to do than to give it one clear, specific weakness for the gamers to exploit? Fun fact, there are no pure ice types in the first generation of Pokemon. Not a single one. These are the 5 you have to pick from. And of the 5 of them, 3 of them are in the top 12 Pokemon of base stat distribution in the entire game. Here's the order. The other thing you may notice is that everything here interacts with Dragon type in some way, with the 2 notable exceptions of the Mew and Mewtwo, the big legendaries of the game, and Tauros. I don't really have an answer for Tauros. We're gonna skip that one. But everything here beyond that either is a dragon, which notably is is tied for second place out of everything in the entire game, the big, huge stat guy, or is a fire type, resisted, electric, resisted, ice and water, we'll come back to that in a second, another water, another fire, another grass, Tauros, and another water and ice. Everything here interacts with Dragon in some way, and that has to be by design. Because Dragon is meant to put up a wall against the 4 basic types, and to have a weakness. And they've given you 3 pretty decent options to exploit said weakness. One of the only 3 legendaries you can have at this point, the most defensive Pokemon in the game at the time if you want to put up a wall, and the one Pokemon that you are given as a special reward that you can't get more than once, and which happens to have a pretty decent hit point total. Both of these scream make it in the long haul to me. They've got high defense or high hit points, so that you can make it through 3 stages of the Elite Four, get to the Dragon guy, and have your silver bullet to take down the werewolf. This seems like basic game design. To me, this reads as a very clear design philosophy. Dragon is the big strong thing that pretty much nothing specially deals with, and there are a couple of answers if you can go out and find them. One of them is a damn legendary, and there's only 3 of those at this point, because you can't have Mew and Mewtwo yet. And this design philosophy around the ice type being the answer to Dragon type kinda holds up for like 4 more games. Did you know that every significant dragon, up until the 5th generation of games, is quad weak to ice type? Dragonite, dragon flying. Altaria, dragon and flying. Salamence, dragon and flying. The entire Garchomp line, ground and dragon, still quad weak to ice. Flygon, ground and dragon. Even Rayquaza himself, the big bad of Hoenn, dragon and flying, still weak to ice. The only notable exceptions to this rule, beyond first stages which aren't strong enough to matter anyway, are the first ever dragon-type legendaries, these 2, and that makes sense. A dragon-type legendary should be the first thing to overcome this weakness. And Kingdra. Now I will admit, and I will give my editor points on this one because they called me out on it, when I was doing the research for this episode, I did overlook Kingdra. But I do think it still helps my point, because if you'll notice, Kingdra's second type is water. Now back in Generation 1, which I know Kingdra isn't, but just bear with me, the only 2 things to resist ice type in any way were ice type itself and water. This feels like an intentional rebuttal to the form. Granted, in Generation 2 they added fire and steel to the resisted by ice type list, but I think this can be chalked up to a difference between the people designing new Pokemon and the people rebalancing the mechanics. At the time, there was the understanding that ice was only weak to water. That water was the only thing that resisted ice, rather. So, of course, dragon is weak to ice, so you make the special dragon that specifically gets around that. This to me doesn't read as a hole in my theory, but rather an intentional rebuttal to the one weakness of dragons. I think this argument is helped by Kingdra being the second dragon type ever, period. First, you give them the one that they're weak to, the 4 times with the Dragonite flying around, and then you give them the opposite. Now you need to find another way around this. You've had your warm-up, Now here's the challenge. But the point remains that for 90% of dragon types up until now, ice is your clear answer. The other thing to consider, which we haven't yet, is steel type. Steel type was also, to some degree, an answer to dragon types, since their inception in Generation 2. Inception? Is that the right word? We're gonna go with it. Whereas ice type was the sword to wield against the dragon, steel type was the shield, taking it on defensively rather than offensively, being the only other thing that resisted it. Sorry, the only thing that resists it, being the only thing in the entire game that resists it. But dragon does have sort of an answer to both of these in fire type. Most dragons, well, I think we can assume, get a fire type move to some degree. It's very common to see a dragon with flamethrower, and thus a balance is struck. And then Pokemon did something a little interesting, a little silly, a little goofy.
Introducing a new type of Pokemon, Fairy type.
On not quite Halloween of 2013, this disgusting menace showed up. And it ruined ice types forever. Because now, suddenly, there's a much more clear answer for dragon type. Back in the day, ice was the answer because it was pretty much the only offensive option. But now, you have this thing, which is not only super effective against dragon, but completely immune to it. Why did this happen? Who's to say? There's an argument to be made for dragon becoming overwhelmingly powerful, but as previously mentioned, from a typing standpoint, that's not really true. It's only good against dragon, and it resists the 4 basic types, but once we make it to like a competitive level, how often are you seeing just the 4 basic types? Sure, they've got plenty of representation, but they're not, like, you're not playing with just your level 100 starter anymore. You need to have the whole type wheel to your advantage, which is to say, this balance of offense and defense, not super overwhelming. Secondary fun fact, there are currently, at the time of filming this, 69, nice, fairy types. You know how many ice types there are? Because I don't. I did. 58. And granted, some of the older Pokemon got changed into fairy types, but I did the math on that too. At the time of fairy types creation, 22 Pokemon got backflipped into fairy. There were also 32 ice types in existence, including my funny little boy. Which is to say, since fairy types' inception, there have been 47 new fairy types and only 26 new ice types. Not only did fairy completely snatch away ice types' only real role in the game, they're also literally pushing them out of the game. There have been nearly double the new fairy types since its existence as there have been new ice types. And, would you believe it, these 2 types are the least 2 prevalent types in the entire game. So now, ice type's main gimmick has been stepped on. It's the least existed type in the game. It doesn't really have the stats to back itself up. It's got a, frankly, brutal type coverage layout. Offensively, I can see an argument for it. 4 and 4 makes perfect sense. So why the fuck is it defensively 1 and 4? Follow-up question, this is more of a personal gripe. Why is ice resisted by fire and water? I can understand one or the other, and I can understand the, like, fire burns away the ice. But, like, ice freezes water. Alternately, it's too cold to start a fire. Why are they both resistant to ice? That pisses me off for a whole different reason. And the other thing that fairy type did, ever since fairy type existed, there have been no good Pokemon games. You already know my thoughts on X and Y, editor play clip. I hated X and Y. X and Y, the games, are the reason that I did not buy a 3DS. That's not a joke. Sun and Moon, the Pokemon the visual novel, I didn't come here for a visual novel, I came here to catch little dudes. Sword and Shield, sorry, they're British? And Scarlet and Violet, this janky, nearly unplayable mess, that on a good day will get 10 frames per minute. And all the legendaries suck. I'm looking at you, Okie Dokie. Well, I would be looking at you if I could see you move more than once a fucking... Yeah! My point is that this needs to change. I'm sick and tired of Ice-type being abused. I'm sick and tired of Ice-type being abused by Game Freak. And Little Creamtown's sick of it too. So here's my pitch on how to fix Ice-type. Solution number 1. Get rid of Fairy-type. Now, I'm not saying that we need to get rid of the Fairy types. Except for Sylveon. That thing can fuck off and die. However, pretty much every Pokemon, every Fairy-type Pokemon, has either a dual type that it could become a monotype of, a dual type that could become a different dual type with just a little bit of thought, or can go back to what it was before Fairy-type existed. This is just a better world. Solution number 2. Buff the shit out of Ice-type. If you're not willing to get rid of the fairies, and I get it, there is one good one. For reference, the good one is Cutiefly. Not the line, just Cutiefly. Then Ice-type needs some extra love. First of all, there needs to be more of them. I stand by the thought that you've got the easiest split evolution. I still think there's a very easy chocolate ice cream. Chocolate, Choclux. Just waiting to be plucked from the ether and put into a game. But beyond that, let's get some more ice types. There's not an Igloo Pokemon. Let's have an Igloo Pokemon. Let's give some more love to Delibird. Give him an evolution. And don't anyone be saying shit about this stupid thing. Let's get Caribou. How are you not an ice type? Like, it seems like such an easy thing to make an ice type. I feel like there's so much untapped potential here. So much unbroken ground. Untrampled snow. Just give me more ice types, please. And can we stop making them people? Frostlass gets a pass, but like, what is this? What is this? This is a tap dancer. Why? And as for the type itself, here's how we balance that. Ice freezes water. It's now super effective on water. Easy fix. Ice does the thing where water gets into the ground and cracks it. That's why it's super effective on ground. Hey dipshit, that mainly works on rocks. Ice is now super effective on rock too. It's dumb that those aren't like that. And since I'm willing to admit that 6 super effectives is a bit much, let's get rid of Dragon. Honestly, you're so committed to this fairy being good against Dragon things, get rid of Ice's good against Dragon. It was great while it lasted, but now we'll have it do some things that make sense, and we might actually get some use and some love for my little Ice-type boys. It's a shame. It's a damn shame how Ice-types have been treated. And if you want to help Ice-types to be better, to have better lives, if you want to be part of the Ice-type activism, then you should check out the Patreon. The one place you can go to support the one defender of ice types, myself. Wobblehawk, champion of the ice types. We also have blooper reels from this video, a bunch of extended cuts and blooper reels and fun stuff over there. And if not, if you hate ice types and want to come scream at me, the best place to do that is in the Discord, where you can come yell at me about ice types and I'll pretend you have a point. You won't, but you'll try. I believe in you. Links for all that in the description. If you want to blast me on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, I guess, that's all down there too. Yeah, ice types deserve more love than they get, and if you disagree with me, I hope you sleep with the heater on, because you're gonna wake up a frosty bitch one night. You're already a bitch, because you don't like ice types, and ice types are great. Good night, everyone, and not a word out of you.